Hi, I'm Steve Ferrell. Welcome to the 30-Day Meditation Challenge. If you're newer to this page, I'm going to suggest that you click the subscribe button down below so that it's easy for you to stay updated on all of the videos that we begin to offer through time. The technique that we're going to be doing today is going to be a visualization technique. This one I call the movie theater. Maybe a technique that you're familiar with. And so, as per usual, finding yourself in a relatively comfortable position, as comfortable as one could be in meditation practice. And so again, whether in a seated position, in a chair, on a cushion, or lying down on the floor, all of these are fine. And the invitation to softly close the eyes. And to take 3 deeper breaths. Not focusing on the length or necessarily the depth, right? But just using those deeper breaths as a way to get more into the experience of this body. Something to settle the mind onto. After those few deep breaths, allowing the breath to be simple, to be easy, to be involuntary. And then imagining in your mind's eye that you were in a movie theater. Maybe it's your favorite movie theater. Right? Maybe it's an old school, sort of smaller scenario, right? Like one of my favorites. Right? Or maybe it's more of a big theater, right? The one that you would go to in almost like a strip mall. Right? Lots of seats, big screen. Right? Maybe it's like an IMAX theater. And that you would decide as you imagine this theater if there are other people there. Right? But it might just be you. But then I want you to imagine yourself as sitting at least 10 rows back from the screen. Right? Maybe even 15 or 20 rows back, depending on how big your theater is. Okay. As you find that seat for yourself, even noticing what does the seat feel like. Even though my favorite theater is old school and small, the seats aren't really that comfortable. Right? But your seat might be very padded. Right? It might recline a little bit. Right? So just noticing the scene for yourself. Right? And whether there's people there or not, take a look around. Just notice the other seats, who might be there or who's not there. And then starting to focus your attention on the screen. Right? And as you look at that screen, whatever content begins to arise in the mind, imagine that it was projected on that screen in front of you. Right? So whatever begins to arise in the mind, whatever thoughts or stories, scenarios, imagine those showing up on the screen in front of you. Right? And it might be a random smattering of things. You might also choose something to think about. Right? Whether a tender moment in your life or something that happened earlier or the day before. And as you see the content of the mind projected onto the screen, also noticing what kind of other thoughts are arising around what is being seen. what it is that you're witnessing. And so just like any movie that we would go to watch, right, we get drawn into it, right, in a very natural way. Some of you might even begin to notice that your opinions about the scene or extra thinking that arises might start to change what the picture does. And just know that that's okay. Keep witnessing the screen, the content of the mind being projected forward. And as you see this film, also notice if you've managed to stay in the same seat, or if inadvertently you've begun to creep forward, which can happen, right? Especially depending on some of the images and the content that's arising. And if you've noticed that you've slipped forward, does it feel okay to be that close? And if not, you might go back a few rows again. Right? Get some space. And just notice that that's available at any time through this particular technique. Is even if you've caught yourself, right? Like now I'm in the first row and the screen is really close and I'm wrapped up in the content. That might be okay, but it might also be a cue to go back a few rows, or maybe right to the back of the theater again. Get some space between you and the screen. If there are other people there in the theater with you, not that you have to see who they are, right, but also noticing if they're having reactions to the film. And then coming back into your own experience of just watching the content of the mind projected forward. It might also be that your mind has started to drift away from the film completely. And if that's the case, can you just recognize that and then gently guide your attention back to the film? Maybe there was a scene that wasn't so exciting. Also the opportunity to check in with the breath every once in a while. Just noticing what breathing doing is a response to what it is that you're seeing or imagining. And then as the last scene comes to a close, the ending credits, maybe a few outtakes, we'll take a few breaths on purpose. Adding any movement that seems necessary. In time, opening the eyes, coming back into your scenario. I hope you enjoyed that technique. The movie theater, sometimes I'll call it the film of life, or the film of the mind. One thing that I really like about this technique for myself and for people that I work with is just as a way to turn mind stuff into something more visual. That sometimes being able to visualize what the mind is saying can start to make things a little bit more concrete. But also gives us a chance to notice how we might get wrapped up in some of the content that's beginning to arise. Right? Like noticing if you've gotten really close to the screen, like maybe you're looking up, the screen's that close. Right? And then when we need to, taking some steps back, right? Moving a few rows back, or again, maybe even to the back of the theater again. Right? But also recognizing that sometimes maybe it's okay that we're right up against the screen and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Right? That we can allow ourselves to get closer to the content without getting wrapped up in it. Right? That we still recognize that we're the observer of the film and not necessarily what's happening on the screen. Hands to heart, head to heart. One bow.